Friends, welcome to the subject software engineering. Today we shall study context model. Point number 1. Context models show how the system being modeled is positioned in an environment with other systems and processes. They define boundaries of the system. So students, this context model is one of the system models that we will be studying. The other models that we will be studying is behavioral model, data model, object models, like this. So as the name itself suggests, context models, that means it will take into reference, what is the system that you are developing and how this system is related to other systems or other processes in the environment. So necessarily you have to define the boundaries of your system and the other systems. Point number 3. Architecture models, process models and data flow models may be used as context models. So students, context models examples are numerous, or types of context models can be architectural models, process models and data flow models. Context models at an early stage in the requirement elicitation and analysis process, one should decide on the boundaries of the system. Yes, students, as a software developer, one must know what is the system he is developing, what is the boundary of the system, what should be considered, what should not be considered. So it is always better that when you are carrying out requirement elicitation and analysis process, you decide what is the boundary of the system. Point number 2. This involves working with the system stakeholders to distinguish what is the system and what is the system environment. Students, you very well know, when you are developing a software, you must take stakeholders into consideration, because these are the people who are going to use the system, or these are the people who will be directly affected by the introduction of the new system. So they very well know what is the system and what is the system environment. Point number 3. If one makes such decision early in the process, then it is possible to limit the system cost and the time needed for the analysis. Students, you very well know, if the decision regarding the system and its boundary is done earlier, then naturally it will limit the cost. So cost will be reduced, or only required cost will be incurred, and also the time that is required to carry out analysis, because once the boundaries are defined, you will not take extra elements into consideration. In some cases, the boundary between the system and its environment is relatively clear. For example, when an automated system is replacing an existing manual or computerized system, then the environment of the new system is usually the same as that of the existing system's environment. Students, you very well know, that is, in the context model we must define what is our system, what is the boundary between our system and other system, and what is the environment. So in certain cases the boundary between the system and environment is very easy to understand. The example is that if you are developing a new automated system for the existing system, then what is the environment of the existing system? Same will be the environment of the new automated system. It is very crystal clear. Point number 2. In other cases, there is more flexibility and one can decide what constitutes the boundary between the system and its environment. Students, when you are developing a new system, then the developer is at liberty to decide what is the system and what is the boundary between the system and the environment. But this must be done in the consultation with the stakeholders. The definition, point number 1, the definition of the system's boundary is not a value-free judgment. Yes, students, if you want to decide on the boundary of the system, okay, you have to consider many factors into consideration. You just cannot take decision on its own. It is not a simple decision. Point number 2, social and organizational concerns may decide the position of the system boundary that may be determined by non-technical factors. Students, you know that social and organizational factors affect the system, okay? So you must consider, okay, all these aspects, and all these are taken, or decisions are taken by non-technical factors or people, okay? These are managerial people who decide about the boundaries of the system. Point number 3, once the boundaries of the system have been decided, then the analysis activity, the definition of the context and the dependencies that the system has on its environment. So students, once we decide the boundaries of the system, then we can carry out the analysis activity and then go and define what is the context and what are the other things that depend on the system and on its environment. Point number 1, in developing a context model, normally the first step is to produce a simple architectural model. Students, we have studied that different context models types are architectural model, okay, data flow model, process model. But the architectural model is easy to understand. So when you are developing a context model, usually you go in for a simple architectural model. Point number 2, high level architectural models are usually expressed as simple block diagram. Students, you know, model is nothing but abstraction of something existing. So if you are going for a high level architectural model, basically you use block diagram because they are very simple to understand. Point number 3, here each subsystem is represented by a named rectangle and the lines indicate association between the subsystems. Students, when you draw a architectural model which consists of number of blocks, then each subsystem is represented by a rectangle and the lines between the rectangles show the association of the subsystem. Let us consider an architectural model that illustrates the structure of the information that includes a bank auto teller network. So students, we shall consider one simple example of architectural model, that is our ATM system, that is bank ATM system. The diagram is available on the next slide. You can see here the context of the ATM system. Students, you find here in all there are 7 rectangles, okay? So each rectangle has a subsystem in it and there are names of the subsystem, okay? So this ATM system has got 7 subsystems. If you begin from the left hand side, we have got branch accounting system on the top, and at the bottom we have got branch counter system. In the very center you have got auto teller system. On the top of it, in the center, we have got security system. In the bottom center, we have got maintenance system. And when you come towards right, on the very top, you have got account database and usage database. Okay, so please go through this model. We'll describe these subsystems and their role in the next slide. Let us take on the description part. The context model of an ATM system. In the figure that we have seen, each ATM is connected to account database, a local branch accounting system, a security system, and a system to support machine maintenance. Okay, so these are the four subsystems that are taken into consideration. In the point 2, the system is also connected to usage database that monitors how the network of the ATM is used and to the local branch counter. So students, in the usage database that is connected to ATM, we know how the various ATMs are used. This data is more valuable from the bank or finance point of view. Okay. Point number 3. This counter system provides services such as backup and printing and therefore need not be included in the ATM system itself. Students, please note here, we are considering here one aspect, that is what is the boundary of the system and what can be little outside the boundary. So the example given here is the counter system that provides services such as backup and printing, can be kept outside the system. Now we'll take up architectural model as context model. Students who have studied earlier, architecture model is one of the representation of the context model. And other models are process models and data flow models. Point number 1. Architectural models describe the environment of the system. Number 2. However, they do not show the relationship between the other systems in the environment and the system that is being specified. Students, you very well know, we have seen in the earlier case, the architectural model speaks about the system and its environment, but they do not show how this system is connected to other system. So this is one of the limitations of the architectural model. Point number 3. External systems might produce a data for or consume data from the system. So whatever data we produce, it might be consumed by other systems, or whatever data the other systems gives, our system may take up as input. The external system, point number 1, the external system might share the data with the system, or they might be connected directly through network or not at all. So students, the external system which are outside the scope of our present system may share the data or they might be connected directly or through the network or not at all. So this is wide example or wide scope that we are considering. Point number 2. They might be physically co-located or located in the separate building. So other subsystems, other systems might be very close physically to our system or can be located in other buildings. Everything is possible because there are different examples that we can consider. Point number 3. All these relations might affect the requirements of the system being defined and therefore must be taken into account. So students, every aspect must be taken into account because they have got direct impact on our okay, elicitation and analysis process where we gather data and carry out analysis activity. Other models as context model. So students, in earlier case we have studied architectural model as context model. We also know that there are other models which are a type of context model, that is process models and data flow models. Point number 1. Simple architectural models are supplemented by other models such as process model, okay, that show the process activities supported by the system. So students, as I told you, architectural model has got its own limitations. So naturally, when you want to take up context of a system, merely architectural model is not sufficient. You may have to take help of the other context model such as process model. These process models show how the process activities are supported by the system. Point number 2. Data flow models, okay, that we shall study later, may also be used to show the data that is transferred between the system and the other system in its environment. Students, as I earlier considered, you know, the context models are three types. One is architectural model, another is process model, another is data flow model. So all these models are complementary in nature. Single model cannot take up the context model. All these are supportive in nature. So data flow model, okay, is used to show the data that is transferred between the system and the other system. So students, today we are introduced to the one of the models that we are studying, that is context models. So this is very simple topic, okay. The PPT available or the video and the PDF notes will suffice. Please go through this introductory, okay, part of the system models, and other models that we will be studying in the next lectures would be easy to understand. I hope you will study this regularly. Thank you.